So odds are, as you have a podcast, you have guests that come on your podcast, but you might not be a guest yourself on other shows. And you should really reconsider that because there's a ton of really good benefits for you personally, for your business, the kind of messaging that you can get. It can improve your podcast as well. So there's a lot of good things. And today we're going to talk about that in really great detail. So welcome in. It's Not Just Talking. I'm your executive producer, Vince Quinn, here to help you sharpen your podcast strategy, improve your production processes, and build your hosting skills so that you can put more time back into your business. And let's get into the first things first, because a lot of this comes into psychology, right? The general psychology that we have as podcasters is pretty much this. It's, well, if I do the show and I have guests come on my podcast, they're all going to bring their audiences over to me. And so now I'm getting their audience on my show, and that's how my show is going to grow. Probably not. Let's be real, because one of the common gripes that I get working with people who are business owners that have podcasts and just things that I've experienced from being in this for a long time. How often, this is a very real question that I'm asking you, so I want you to think about this and have some answer in your head. How often have you had a guest on your show and they've done a great job promoting it? Because it's probably not that often, right? You get something that's a half-assed retweet. It's, oh yeah, I was on this show. Go check it out. Like, you already did all the work. They didn't add anything interesting, new, exciting, relevant to it. It's not engaging in any way. They're just trying to fill the requirement and keep it moving. They don't want to feel like they completely stiffed you because they probably committed, yes, I'll be willing to promote the show. But that doesn't mean they're willing to promote it well. It happens a lot, right? So you have to appreciate that, and maybe if you have been a guest, even if you don't regularly commit to it, and which you should and is part of the whole idea today, but if you've done it yourself, maybe even once or twice, have you really promoted it that well? So think about that psychology, and how often are you listening to other shows that you're not aware of because somebody that you know, have a relationship with, is on that show? If they already have one, you probably just listen to that. And it's, oh, they're also on that show. So just for me personally, I don't follow people to all these other shows, especially when it comes to business aspects. I'm listening to their show, I'm checking them out there, I'm getting as much information as I can out of it. That's pretty much it. So you don't have this expectation, but everybody believes that by having the guest on, they're going to bring that audience. And really nothing shows to me that that is the case. And if you've been doing it and having guests for a long time and you have a guest every single week, how much has your podcast grown? Have you done 500 episodes with 500 guests? Do you have even 500 listeners? And I'm not saying that to put you down. I'm just saying let's examine this theory and see what's wrong with it, which is it doesn't work. It's a nice idea, but I don't think it's practical. It's not real. How do you go about this in a way that you actually get the value for you and your show and get in touch with all these other audiences? You are a guest on their shows. Go to them, their audiences, people that don't know you. Because bringing on a new guest and presenting that to your audience is one thing, but it's probably more of a benefit to the guest than it is to you. So now you get the chance to be that guest and go on their show with their audience and get yourself in front of those people. And when you get to the end of the show and you've established, hey, here I'm really knowledgeable and interesting and I can solve all your problems, so you should check out me. Now send those people in this whole new audience that may have never known that you were existed before that episode aired. Let them know that your podcast exists and bring those people now, because you've already captured their attention. They haven't changed anything in their habits whatsoever. They're doing the exact same thing that they've always done, right? They've gone and listened to this show that they're a regular subscriber to. So you're not interrupting anything. You're not asking them to do something new, listen to something new until you've already talked to them for 40 minutes. And now you're saying, hey, I've been on this show. You've heard me talk. You like this host. This host liked me enough to bring me on and have this conversation and share it with you. Because it's also not a given that when you are a guest on a show or have a guest on your show that you post those episodes. So they posted the episode. They are sharing it with their audience. Great. Now go check me out. It's flipping that common psychology that everybody has. By bringing guests, they will bring their audience. It's really by being a guest, you can take their audience and bring it back to you, right? That's where you want it to be. So that's part of the value of guesting. You're getting access to these new audiences and bringing them back. And then the other thing is you're benefiting. Think of that direct person that you're having the relationship with, right? For them to be the guest and come on the show, you get to have the conversation with them. Yes, you're trying to showcase them as best as you can. Does the conversation stand out in a way that they think it's truly amazing? Maybe. And you get a good conversation out of that and a good relationship out of that. But on a selfish level, people are selfish, right? It's just how they are. So it's easier. You're going to make somebody feel better about you if you go on their show and you really light it up and you're bringing the energy and you're showcasing them and you're saying how great a job they're doing or how smart they are, and you're doing it on their program in front of their audience while showcasing yourself at the same time. And if you're having those kinds of conversations as a guest, and now the episode's been posted, and you know what? You are a superstar with sharing it. You're the golden exception to being a guest on a podcast. You actually share the thing with intent. You have real thoughts that you add when you promote the clips that they put out and the episodes that they feature you in. That person's going to love you. They might have you back. How often do shows bring you back that you're not good friends with, right? Like, that's the opportunities that you're opening up, because all the things that you've wanted a guest to do for you, and typically they do not do, you can provide that to somebody else, and now they will love you for it. And you're getting more opportunities to get in front of that person's audience because you're sharing the post that they've made. That's how you get out. That's how you build this awareness. That's how you're getting a new audience. That's how you're getting stronger relationships. It's another way to build those connections with the people that you want to connect with anyway. Yes, having them on is good, taking care of them, having a great show. But a lot of this is also opportunity for you to get your own marketing materials out, right? So you've got to worry about that and make sure that you're promoting it for yourself, for your existing audience. So you have other responsibilities and other obligations. But now you're giving it all to them, and the bonus is you get to also bring that back to your audience. If you're listening to this, chances are that your business podcast is struggling, but you're not sure what's holding it back. That's why I created the Podcast Compass Quiz. And in just 5 minutes, you'll get clarity on what's working, what's not, and where to focus your energy next. Best part? It's completely free. So hit the link in the show notes to take the quiz now. Here's one of the interesting things that I've experienced being a guest on shows myself, which has been incredibly helpful. And it's that I'm not in control of the conversation. Because think about this. As a host, you drive. It's your show. You're asking the questions. And it's not common for people to come on as a guest and take over the interview. Now they're asking you all the questions. They're moving everything along. They're deciding where the conversation goes. That's really not how it is. People tend to understand that I'm a guest. I'm going to answer questions. I might have little follow-ups here and there, but they don't become the host. They play the role of the guest. And when you flip that dynamic and now you are exposed to whatever questions and thoughts and opinions that they might have, and they're in control as the host, it can take you places that you're not prepared for. And sometimes you find gaps in things that you say. For example, I got asked recently on a podcast, they were asking me about voice. And coming from sports talk radio, the whole thing for me was, as sports talk radio, a lot of it is wrestling. Okay, and that is, and it's not just sports talk, it's really anything that's related to entertainment, any big persona. It's not about information as much as it's, am I entertaining people? How can I get the biggest audience possible? On the business side, it's totally different because, and it's a lot of things I've talked about on the show, it's how can I build a voice that is informational, also entertaining? That's a hard thing to do. And it's a totally different route. And I had a terrible job explaining that when I was on that show. I wasn't quite prepared for the question. I hadn't really talked about it on my show. I didn't have the language down. I couldn't explain it clearly. And having that conversation because this host, in their position, asked me a good, natural question in my space that I wasn't ready for, I looked back on that after and I was like, you know what? I know generally what I'm trying to say here, but I can really tighten up that messaging. And I was able to reflect on that And now I've been able to share that insight with you. And I did it pretty concisely. Like, that is value, right? So now you get to look at your message from another lens. Other people are picking at it. If there's flaws in your logic, people will let you know. So putting yourself in those situations, it's not common that you're going to see that as a host. People want to be respectful of you. They want to be respectful of your platform. They don't want to attack you. So, or just question you. And being a guest in other venues allows people to do that, and it expands your ability. It's going to make you better as a speaker. You're going to understand your mindset more, listening back to those episodes and thinking, oh, I haven't said this before, but this is a really good line. I'm going to keep using that. Like, there's value in that dynamic of not being in control. So think about that. Consider what that can do for you. If you feel a little bit stuck, that might be one of the things that you should do. And we're always looking for that opportunity, right? You want to improve your messaging. How can I be sharper? How can I be clearer? How can I get people through my funnels in a more effective way? That's the stuff that everybody cares about. It's what we all want. But it takes repetition to do that, and it's constant work. Like, I'm a comedy nut, okay? I love stand-up, always watched it as a kid. I've worked in comedy clubs. I wrote for comedians. Like, I've done stuff. And through all of that work, it takes a ton of repetition to get a joke right, to come up with the right emphasis on specific words. You know what I mean? There's a lot of mastery and specificity in it. And for somebody like Nikki Glaser, host of the Golden Globes, she had 90 run-throughs at least of that appearance. Everything in her monologue, she went over 90 different times before she went live with it. And in the same way, if you've got things that you're trying to workshop, what is that message? Maybe you do speaking engagements, and that's part of your business, or you want to do more of that, or you're working on marketing materials, and you want to make sure that that messaging's right, or advertising, or whatever it might be. You get the opportunity to workshop some of those things as well on other podcasts. Pitch yourself to talk about those topics on those kinds of shows. See how the message resonates. You can refine all of that, and then as you've done it in these audiences that don't know you, then you get the opportunity to showcase it to your audience that does. And especially if you have a big audience and you're doing the guest spots on smaller shows, you're mitigating the risk, right? I'm not fully confident on this. I think it's there. I want to work on it a little bit more. Go hack at it, but hack at it as a guest. Just on the last level of why you should go out and do it, or at least try to do it, is maybe people don't want to book you. And you're getting a lot of no's. And then even more no's. And you're wondering why you're doing this. And rightfully so. Another reminder that maybe your messaging isn't very good. Because we think so much on the podcast, and there's so much pressure put on it, and just this assumption that it is good, that people understand it, that it is working, it is resonating, and it's just that not enough people see it. I think we all operate in this mindset, right? And I do it, right? It's like, this show is great, and I think everybody should believe in this show, and I think if anybody just gets the chance to listen to it, they're going to love it, they're going to stay, it's going to be great, it's going to be so helpful. But that's not always the case. And if the main messaging from your show is the same messaging that you're using to pitch yourself as a guest and nobody wants to talk to you, you can't get on shows that are any good, you're not having good conversations with good hosts in the right markets, it's a pretty good reason to go and reflect on your podcast and see what the issues are. So another value of being in that guest circuit and trying to go and build yourself up that way. So think about all of these different things, the relationships with the hosts and the guests, the ways you can connect with their audience, how it can sharpen your message. And you can pick and choose the time. I'm not saying that you have to commit to doing one guest spot a week or even one a month, but think about the idea of how can you make yourself available and how can you take opportunities as much time as you can afford to do it? Because it is a way to grow the show. These are podcast listeners. They are people that care about the medium, care about the market, have some interest in what you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be on the shows. They wouldn't book you. Or they shouldn't book you, but that's the idea. So go pile all of this stuff together, take the value out as you can, and add that into your overall strategy. It's not this one-way street like I'm a vacuum cleaner and everything is just coming into the show. Go out to other places. Go hunt. Go retrieve. Go showcase and go bring it back. So that's the value of being a guest, just in a general sense. And with that being said, what I want to do is next week, So being a guest on a lot of shows now and taking guests for this show, it's opened my eyes in a lot of ways. There's a lot going on with just being a guest in the podcast industry, the way booking agents handle all of this stuff. There's a lot of things that I think are frankly terrible. And if you're paying for these agencies, there's a lot of things to be worried about. We will talk about that next week. And we'll also talk about some opportunities too, because as much as podcasting and being a guest is common, it's very undeveloped, and you can take advantages of that for your show. So all that is going to be next week. Make sure you tune in. I'll see you. Thanks for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe to the newsletter to get more podcast insights. That link is in the show notes. And if you're feeling stuck with your podcast, let's figure it out together. Book a free 10-minute chat with me. The link to do that is also in the show notes. Talk to you next week.